Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. This is episode 164 with Elise Darma. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer and guide, Derek Loudermilk. Check out the show notes at derekloudermilk.com and sign up for the top 10 ways to earn money online while traveling the world. It's got full of links and a video for you to check out so you can learn the different business models that people are using successfully to run their location-independent businesses. That's what I love to help people do, is start these location-independent businesses. So if you want to book a free strategy session with me, I offer 30-minute free calls with listeners of the show. All you need to do is go to the coaching page on derekloudermilk.com and sign up, or send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com, and I'll send you a link to my calendar and we will find a spot to chat. Today's episode features my friend Elise Darma. And we met a few years ago while we were co-working at Ubud in Bali. And she's created some amazing work for herself and her business since then. And so I really wanted to get her on because she has had some phenomenal growth in her Instagram and how she's been using Instagram to drive business. So a lot of you probably have an Instagram account. You're curious about it. You like to use it. It's a beautiful social network, picture heavy. We love beautiful photos. So today is a deep dive into Instagram, how to use it for business. And the cool thing is that in the 3 weeks since I recorded the interview, and now when I'm recording this introduction, I've used all the things, most of the things that she teaches us in the interview, and I've grown my Instagram from 2,000 to more than double, 4,600 as of this recording in about 3 or 4 weeks. So it's very useful stuff if you want to grow an Instagram. If you're just curious about how it works, how it can drive business or get people interested in you as a person or brand, this is the interview for you. So I think you're really going to enjoy this interview with Elise because it's very simple, she's very personable, and she knows what she is talking about. So here you go, Elise Darma. Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. We're here today with Elise Darma. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And Elise is the founder of Canopy Content. She's a big hotshot Instagrammer. And she hosts the Travelpreneur Lounge on Facebook, and you can also find that at travelbossclub.com. We met randomly sitting across from each other at Ubud co-working space in Bali, Indonesia. Yep. And you just got back from a co-working vacation in Nicaragua.
That's right. Yeah.
And where were you working there?
I was at a brand new co-working spot in San Juan del Sur called Nomad Life. So they had just launched a couple months ago, and I was there with about 25 other people that they can host. Yeah, when you and I met actually in Bali, that was my first major remote working trip.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, we just happened to sit across from each other and stay in touch over social media. So it's cool how things quickly change when you look back on the years.
Yeah, 2 years have gone by pretty fast. And, from the outside, I was sort of seeing you pop up and it looked like you were creating a lot of things. And also you notice when someone's branding is very clean and cohesive and good messaging, and you have that. And so I wanted to have you on actually to talk about the work that you do, the branding, and especially Instagram. But first, I'm curious about how you wound up in Nicaragua in the first place, and tell me a little bit about how you work remotely, because I know that you're in Toronto right now as we're recording this.
Yeah, so Toronto is my home base for most of the year. I am not a full-time digital nomad. I do like having a home base and a home office, and typically when I look back on my years, I tend to travel for about 1/3 of the year. This year might be a bit more than that just because I am spending more time abroad, but not moving around. I'm kind of staying in one spot for an extended period of time. So the trip to Nicaragua, which I just came back from, that was essentially staying in San Juan del Sur for the month, and then traveling on weekends around the country to see other cities in the area. So that strategy is working for me a lot better than in the first few years, where I would say, for example, travel to Europe and I would, head to like 5 different cities with 3-4 days in each one. And that was just hectic because, of course, I'm still working at the same time. And it really did not work out well to travel on weekdays. So I switched to a format where I'd only allow myself to travel on weekends. But, with Europe, there's so much to see. It just became overwhelming, every city trying to cram as much as I could in. So this last trip, spending a good month in one place was really beneficial and probably the way I'll try to do it going forward.
I've definitely noticed that each time I try to go on an adventure, it just cuts into productivity time. And it's this balance where you want to explore, you want to see the cool places where you are, and then you're not giving your work projects their fair share if you do too much of that.
Yeah, totally. I've finally kind of concluded that remote working is awesome. I will continue to do it, but it's a really good thing to do in my business when my business is more so coasting versus at a stage where I'm trying to scale or grow it. Mm-hmm. Remote working is awesome for just staying on top of your tasks, but I find if you're trying to be heads down in your business, building a product, making a big change of any sort, it's just, for me personally, it's super distracting to be trying to do that and be somewhere cool where you're trying to see the sights and have that new experience as well.
So what are the benefits for you to work remotely? Why bother at all?
Working remotely satisfies that urge within me to have new adventures, new experiences, to shake up my daily routine. I've always been, since I was a teenager and I discovered traveling, I've always been inclined to just do new things and shake up the routine and, aim to live a life that's not in that world of mediocrity, or however you want to phrase it. I've just always been the type to seek out these new experiences. Ironically, I can also be a major homebody too. It's a very strange dichotomy. It confuses my boyfriend to no extreme because he's also someone who does push me to have these new experiences.
Yeah.
So it's this bizarre world of, like, one hand, I love having my home office, my home in general, my home base, but I also, after a month or two, get that itch for something new. And yeah, it's this bizarre balance that I'm still playing around with, for sure, which I find is important to keep the creative juices flowing for my business, whether that's for my own business, growing that, or even the client work that I do for clients through my agency services business, which is Canopy. So mentally, creatively, it is important for me to see new things, have new experiences, to keep that inspiration. It's going to sound super cliche, but to keep that inspiration going, because it does really generate new ideas for me and just keeps me really mentally engaged. I compare it to when I did work in a 9-to-5, because I did have that experience straight out of university. And that is a mental place that I won't forget. It's a totally different mental toll on you when you work in a 9-to-5 routine. You typically only have 2 weeks vacation. And after a couple of years of doing the 9-to-5, mentally it became such a struggle to stay engaged and motivated and creative. And that's when I had started my side business at that time. But it wasn't until I left the 9-to-5 world and ran my services business full time that I literally never felt that mental lull that I did in my 9-to-5 ever again. It's never returned.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. And you were working at a marketing or branding agency in Toronto?
Actually, no, I didn't come from background. My path was a bit unique in that in school, I was studying media, I was studying screenwriting, a lot of storytelling, that world. And at the time, I was working in a relatively new job as a social media marketer for a tech incubator for tech startups. So I kind of fell into the world of digital media and entrepreneurship simply by having that job as a social media marketer for a tech incubator. So looking back, super lucky that I fell onto that path. Entrepreneurship was always an interest of mine. As a teen, I had my own little piano business where I taught students piano. So I treated that as like a real business. And yeah, so I always had an interest in entrepreneurship. It made sense to be in that environment. Coupled with the fact that I was studying writing and screenwriting, I could apply that to marketing world in my social media marketing job. So that's really how I learned to do what I now do for e-commerce brands. It wasn't something I studied in school. I literally made it up as I went along and threw myself into learning social media marketing and how to not just grow accounts, but grow them with targeted potential customers for brands. That really was key. So that's how I got my start doing what I do now.
Cool. And I like what you said there, because growing accounts is sort of vanity. Like, it looks great if you have lots of numbers, but the whole point is for a business to sell their product, service. So it doesn't do any good if it's not in service of that. It doesn't fuel the business. So I want to get into that. But first, actually, I'm curious because you told me before how you that they were hosting you down in Nicaragua. And I'm curious just what that agreement was like and how that came about.
Sure, yeah. As I've grown my Instagram account over the last year, and really the original motivation behind growing my personal Instagram was simply to use myself as the best case study for new potential clients. So at that time, I would use other client examples when I was speaking with a new potential client. I'd show them the work that I'd done for other clients, which was great because they're all e-commerce brands. It all, they understood what I was doing. But then I thought, I think the best proof that I could show someone is that I personally walk my own talk. So I started growing my personal Instagram just less than a year ago, just for business purposes to prove to clients that I could do it. But since then, so much has come out of it that I did not anticipate. And part of what comes out of having an account with quote unquote influence is that you get brand partnerships or sponsorship offers. So for the most part, I don't move forward with the offers. A lot of times brands, I don't know why, but they just reach out even though it doesn't really make sense to partner up because our brands are not aligned. So for companies that are just looking for an influencer to give them a shout out to promote their bracelet or their, food product, I don't agree with those ones because it just doesn't make sense considering my brand is all about travel and entrepreneurship. So far, the partnerships that have made sense and the ones that I have gone forward with have related to co-working spaces. Co-working spaces are my jam. Working from Hubud years ago, that was literally my dream when I was in a 9-to-5. I was in a 9-to-5. I stumbled upon Hubud. It looked like this crazy tree house that you could work out of with monkeys running around. It was my dream to get there. I got there, and then a couple months later, I was running my business full time at that time anyway. So I love co-working spaces. I mean, I basically started working in a co-working space for tech startups. It's just been the environment I've been in since 2010, I would say. So in the last couple of years, with so many co-working spaces popping up, when they reach out to me, oftentimes it will be because they're looking at the hashtag digital nomad or hashtag remote working. I think I use a lot of those hashtags in my Instagram posts. So I think they find me by looking up those hashtags. And typically they'll just say, hey, we love what you're doing, living that remote working lifestyle. We've got a place in such and such city. If you'd like to come by and check it out one day, we'll be happy to host you. It's usually very casual like that. Mm-hmm. September, I partnered with a co-working space in Lisbon called Surf Office. And I mean, I like to pretend that I think I can surf, but I just love their whole beach vibe because that's sort of that's part of my branding as well, and where I like to go. I love the beachy, warm environments. But I partnered with them, and at that time they had a program where anyone could apply to it, actually. Take over their Instagram for a week and post from their account, and then you could stay and work from Surf Office. So I applied to something that was open to anyone to apply to. They reached out to me, they agreed to it, and then last September I found myself working out of Lisbon for the week. That's how the first one came to be. With my time in Nicaragua, it was probably something similar. The founder of the co-working space found me through Instagram based on those targeted hashtags. And after a few emails back and forth, I was actually already somewhat planning to go to Nicaragua at that time. So it really just, it was great timing altogether. So I told them the dates that I was planning on coming there. We arranged an agreement where essentially I would cross promote their new co-working space while working from there. So that's how that came to be.
Cool. And so what was the specific agreement? Did you say I'm going to Instagram 5 times and I'll get to work there for free for a certain number of days? Like, what were the specifics?
The specifics were that I was going to run their Instagram accounts while I was there. So basically work on their own Instagram strategy and post and run their accounts while working from their working space. At the same time, I'd also be sharing with my own followers where I was working from. I think I even offered to do a vlog while I was there, more so as a challenge to myself to document the experience more so. So I have some video footage that I still need to put together. Yeah, that was essentially the agreement.
And were they giving you housing or just the co-working space?
Yeah, that Nomad Life in particular is a place where you work from and you live from as well.
Okay, cool. And did you like that? Will you do more of that in the future?
Like more of the co-working, co-living aspect, or
like
more
if
partnerships?
Somewhere offers you a place, come live for a month to take over their Instagram, would you do it again?
Yeah, I think I would. It was an awesome way to do it, totally aligned with what I do already. So yeah, I'd definitely be open to more experiences like that.
Okay, cool. Now let's talk about Canopy briefly. How much of your time were you spending working on that, or how much of your time do you spend on running Canopy versus, your own other business ventures?
Okay, yeah. Let's see. For the last couple years that I've been doing Canopy full time, it's generally been my full-time focus. In the last 6 months, I have kind of pulled back on taking on new clients. I'm just working with, a handful of consistent clients and then one-off projects every now and then for new clients. But I've made the decision to pull back from taking on more clients just because I want to have the time to focus on this new business, which is based on my personal brand, which I didn't foresee it being a new business, but it's looking like it has that potential. So I do want to give it some good, solid focus and attention. And a lot of this, to be honest, this new business has stemmed completely from growing my Instagram account.
I think that's what a lot of people are excited to hear, because people love Instagram and they want to know that it can drive business. And I think a lot of people, myself included, love the idea of personal brand driving business, because no one can really replace your personal brand because you're the only one. Mm-hmm,
for sure. And with that note, a lot of it comes down to storytelling. And it's funny, it's making, in my life anyway, I'm seeing this full circle happen, because I studied storytelling and screenwriting in school, but didn't actually use it in my day job as I became a social media marketer, which social media is a form of storytelling as well. But that's been a really eye-opening experience to me. In general, I've been a pretty private person on the personal story side. And just in the last year, making the commitment to grow my personal Instagram, I also opened up a bit more. I treat Instagram sort of as a microblogging platform. So I use the captions as a way to share little aspects of my life and what I do. And it's just grown so much faster than having a brand account that's not based on me as a person, because obviously now looking back, people resonate so much more with you as a real person than you as a, faceless brand like Canopy.
Right. Yeah. So storytelling, I at times claim to be a storyteller. I am usually recounting lots of adventures that I've, gotten into tight spots and then got out of them and things like that. What stories are you choosing to tell about your life on Instagram?
A lot of it comes down to, I find people ask me the question, how are you doing what you do? Because if you just look at my Instagram feed from that bird's eye view, it just looks like, a girl in these sunny, exotic locations, but you don't really know how or why she's doing it. For all some people know, I could just be a trust fund baby and living off of some whack of money that I came into and just traveling and not working. So as I started sharing more of my travel photos, I realized people were assuming that I didn't work and that I was just traveling, or that I was a travel blogger and somehow my trips were sponsored. So it was a result of listening to the followers, the community that was being built, who were asking the questions. And so then I realized I need to share more about what I do from a business perspective, and the fact that I have a business and I'm an entrepreneur. And yes, I'm traveling and working from these amazing places, but I need to highlight the fact that I'm working and I'm not just on vacation all the time. So from there, I began to tell stories of what my present days were looking like, what I was doing while working from Nicaragua, for example. Then I started telling stories of my history. A lot of times people wanted to know, how did I start? Did I study this in school? How did I get my first client? That sort of thing. So I started sharing more aspects of my story related to the hows. And then in September, from Lisbon, actually, while I was working at Surf Office, I launched a personal brand / blog, as an extension for my Instagram, because I realized Instagram's been great for the micro blogging aspect, but I wanted a blog where I could really go way more in depth into what it is that I was doing, how I was doing it, etc.
Cool. Awesome. I've got a lot of specific questions because I Instagram regularly, especially when I'm traveling a couple times a day, when I have lots of new photos coming in, and interesting things are happening. And my personal account has grown very slowly, and I always thought if I just put up interesting pictures and cool little stories, that it would grow. I've seen primarily I follow a lot of professional photographers, landscape or adventure photographers, and their accounts are huge, and they also have amazing photos. So, I was like, well, if you build it, then they will come. And that's not what happened. So clearly there's strategy. Obviously, you grew your account from, it's like 56,000 followers now, and you just had a few thousand a year ago. So what's the first thing or a couple common misconceptions about how to grow an Instagram account?
I think you touched on the first major one, in that most people think, well, if I put out good content, people will find me. And that's more of a passive approach, and it can potentially work, but like you said, the growth will just be a lot slower. I find that those who take more of a proactive angle to it and strategy, they will see the growth happen a lot faster. We can get into that a little bit. So proactive is taking essentially the time out of your day to invest into the Instagram app. And by that, I mean, it goes beyond just scrolling aimlessly for fun. It means engaging and taking the time to literally seek out and find those followers who would, in your mind, make an excellent follower for your account. So there's several strategies that you can do to go about this. But just to give you some context of the time commitment, when I first started this Instagram journey, I would probably spend upwards of an hour a day, sometimes two, in the app, proactively finding and reaching out to people. So to break that down, I would say that the first change I made was I committed to posting daily. So I would spend a good 20 to 30 minutes just making my post With that involves the editing of the photo. I try not to over edit mine, but typically with every image posted, there are some slight tweaks made to it, whether it's the brightness, the contrast, saturation. My feed, you can also figure out what your feed design is going to be, but with mine, I kept it pretty simple. I just aimed to post bright, vibrant pictures, full image pictures. So I do take the time to edit it. Then there is the writing of the caption. So that also takes some time depending how lengthy of a story you're sharing about yourself. The next part of it is the hashtag research. So with every post that you share on Instagram, you can include up to 30 hashtags. So typically I have the hashtags saved on my phone because they were already pre-researched, but there's a hashtag strategy, of course. The strategy involves you finding hashtags that relate to what the niche of your account is. So for mine, it's not just a travel account, but it's about travel and business, or, being a digital nomad or being a remote worker. So I sought out and researched hashtags that related to all those terms and those keywords that I wanted my account to be known for. And with hashtags, there is a science to it, of course. You don't want to choose huge generic hashtags like hashtag travel, for example. Hashtag travel has, I don't know how many millions of posts associated with it. And the reason why you wouldn't want to use something like that is because you want to get into that top 9 trending posts for your hashtag that you use. So if you're including hashtag travel, and hashtag travel has, I think it's like, I don't even know, 10 million posts associated with it, the chances of your account, unless your account is absolutely huge and you have a ton of followers and engagement, the chances of your account trending in that top 9 is very low. If anything, you're going to post, an image with hashtag travel, and it's just going to drown in the sea of all the other posts with that hashtag, right? So you want to get strategic with the hashtags that you're using. And by strategic, I mean specific hashtags still related to your niche, but just a lot fewer posts using that hashtag. And that way, when you find those hashtags, and again, this all depends on how big your account currently is. When you're first starting out, you're going to find hashtags that aren't used a whole lot. And then as your account grows, you're going to change up your hashtags to find ones that are more commonly used and ones that you can still reasonably trend in. So that's where the work aspect and the research aspect comes into it. Like I said, I'll typically have researched and save those hashtags on my phone so that while I'm at that point where I've got my picture edited, I've got my caption written, once I post it, I simply I copy and paste those hashtags that I've already got on my phone and then associate them with my post.
You're posting them in the first comment?
Yes, I post them in a first comment just because I find it looks cleaner than trying to have a really long caption and then hashtags in that caption as well. So I think with the way Instagram works, you do need to post those hashtags in that first comment within the first 30 to 60 seconds. You want to basically post your image and then get those hashtags in your first comment right away as well. So that's the time that I would spend just on creating the post. So that alone was probably 30 minutes. The time flies when you're in the Instagram, black hole of creation. So that would be just for the post. And then beyond that, the other where proactivity really comes into play is when you specifically search out accounts, like I said, that you feel would make an excellent follower to your account. So you'll find accounts that are also using the hashtags you're using. You'll tap into those hashtags. You'll see other people using that hashtag for their posts. You'll click into their post. You'll like their post. You'll comment on one of their posts, or you'll comment on a few of them. You'll like a few of their posts. You'll engage with that account. So that time that you spend engaging with accounts that are already using, the hashtags that you are targeting, that's really the secret sauce to having your account noticed by a lot more people than that passive approach where you're just putting the content out there and you're waiting to be found.
Okay, cool. I've got some specifics questions here. First of all, what hashtags have you found to be really useful for you?
Well, like I said, they're all different according to the niche that you are targeting and where you want your post to trend in. But I would say, just based on the brand sponsorship opportunities that have come my way, anything related to remote work, hashtag digital nomad, hashtag entrepreneur, hashtag entrepreneurship, all those have resulted in good brand opportunities or partnerships. So I typically, in my hashtags, I will find a bunch that are related to being a digital nomad. I will find a bunch that are related to having my own business, whether that's freelance, hashtag small business, hashtag girl boss. There's a huge hashtag, I know I would never call myself girl boss in real life, but when you look into this hashtag community of female entrepreneurs, there are so many. So if you want to tag and associate your post with being a female entrepreneur, use those hashtags. There's a ton. So I use those hashtags for my account, anything related to being a woman in business, anything related to being self-employed, being your own boss. There's a hashtag that's pretty popular called goal digger, which is common for female entrepreneurs to use. There are hashtags related to, for me, I made up the word travelpreneur. I combined travel and entrepreneur into one word, but you will find that same made up word for every type of entrepreneur. There's creativepreneur, there's mediapreneur, there's soulpreneur. It's just this.
Good. I have adventurepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And I'm sure there's other people using that one quite often as well. So there's all those general kind of hashtags that talk about who you are and what you do. And then there are also hashtags that big accounts will use and ask you to use if you want to be featured on their account. So for example, there's a big popular account called Dame Traveler, and it features, females in these really scenic landscapes. So if you want your post to be featured on their account, you're going to have to hashtag your post, hashtag Dame Traveler, and that's how they'll find your account and potentially feature you. So I know some travel related accounts and travel bloggers, they will pretty much keep all their hashtags related to those specific ones that will feature posts. And then every now and then they'll be featured on that feed, which of course gives them so much more exposure to that larger audience. So that's another way to do it as well.
And would you do that if you had a really sharp photo that you knew was going to be shareable by a big account?
For sure. If I had a photo that I knew spoke to a certain brand's aesthetic already, like I said with Dame Traveler, from what I know of her account, she tends to post these kind of wide scenic shots featuring a woman. Often you can't really identify the woman's face. It's usually her side or the back of her, and she's usually quite small in the image. So it's sort of a lifestyle travel shot. If I had posted a photo that was very much aligned with that look and that brand, I would definitely tag it with her hashtag for that chance at being featured on her account.
Gotcha. And then when you are writing the story in the caption, are you writing that on your laptop and then copying it in so you can write more quickly, or using voice to text, or are you just sitting there on your thumbs? How do you do that?
To be honest, I mostly just type it out on my phone, just because if I were someone who planned ahead better, I would actually schedule it on my computer, because there are tons of scheduling tools you can use to do that. But I find that I'm in my phone most of the time. It's not the most efficient way to do it by any means, but if you're someone who likes to plan ahead and maybe bulk edit and bulk schedule your posts for the week ahead of time, that's absolutely way more efficient. So do that if that's your style. But I find that I do get stuck in my phone because a lot of the editing apps that I like to use are on my phone. I don't use too many that are desktop based. So what will happen is I'll have the photo on my phone, whether it's in my camera roll or saved in my Dropbox. I'll save it to my camera roll. I'll use my editing apps. Usually it's just a few tweaks here and there, and I'll do that on my phone. So if I were to upload it to my desktop, I usually don't take that step, because it does involve another step of sending it to my desktop and then uploading it to a scheduling tool there. I tend to just save it on my phone. I save it in an album as a, already edited, ready to go image. And then because I'm already on my phone, I'll just typically type out my thoughts or my caption specifically for that post. Every now and then, I do get ahead of myself. I will bulk upload and bulk schedule captions via my desktop, but for the most part, I'm just doing it from my phone.
Cool. I didn't realize that you could Instagram from your desktop.
Yeah, there's a few paid scheduling tools that are pretty commonly used, I'd say, for people who are really committed to growing their Instagram. And some of them are really cool because it will help you pre-plan the look of your feed. So if you're someone who has a very specific style and design of your feed, and sometimes you might be deciding between two images, like, which one's going to look best next in my feed? Sometimes you'll want to actually visually plan it out. So sometimes people would use the app Visco. That one lets you upload photos to look at the feed. But if you're using a scheduling tool, typically Later is a common one used, and Planoly is another one that's used.
Perfect. Okay, here's a question. You've decided to focus on Instagram, but obviously there's a lot of other social media. You can also tell stories with video content. You can write like you do with lengthy blog posts. How did you decide to focus on Instagram versus anything else?
I sort of just fell into it. I mean, at that time, Instagram already was my favorite app when I joined it in 2012, I believe. And for the first couple of years, I just used it, as most people did, to randomly post their pictures of their friends and their food and their nights out. But Instagram, just for me, it was the social platform that just gave me the most pleasant experience. I had dropped off Twitter long ago. Facebook, the news feed just became full of news and random stuff that I wasn't really interested in. But being a visual person and, I always liked photography, Instagram was just always such a pleasant experience to scroll through. And then when I started my marketing services for e-commerce brands, at that time, Instagram was a relatively untapped social platform. So a lot of my focus for my clients became on growing their own Instagram. So I would spend a lot of time in the app growing it for e-commerce brands. And then personally, it just made sense that if I was going to try to grow any account or any platform for my own personal brand, Instagram it was the best fit. I liked photography. I liked writing. It was a relatively simple platform, and that's why I went ahead with it.
Cool. I know that Facebook has an algorithm so that if things are getting early comments and posts, it gets to more people. I know that video is preferred on Facebook because they want you to stay and spend more time on Facebook. Is there an Instagram algorithm as well? And how important is engagement?
Sure, yeah. There definitely is an Instagram algorithm. I believe it was about a year ago this time that Instagram changed its order and changed the feed, and everyone was freaking out because they switched from a purely chronological order of looking at, the newest posts to oldest posts to following an algorithm. So where Instagram would change up your feeds so that you're going to see kind of the more highly engaged posts first of the people you're following. And so in that sense, you might see a post from 12 hours ago first, and then you'll see a post from an hour ago, and then a post from 6 hours ago. Like, it was just all over the map. And people freaked out because they were worried that, of course, their posts were not going to get seen and engaged with as much as they were with the chronological feed. And that's actually what happened for sure. If your account was small or if it didn't have a good, healthy engagement with your posts that you're putting out there, Instagram basically wasn't going to reward you as much as they were before with this new algorithm. So engagement, to answer your second question, engagement of your posts is certainly key, especially when you first post your image up there. You want to aim to get as many likes and as many comments as you can right when you post within that first little window, because that will signify to Instagram, hey, here's a new post. People are really liking and engaging with it. We're going to, make sure it goes to the top of people's feeds.
And is that just luck that people are going to see and engage with it?
It might be some part of it. Well, no, it's probably not luck. It's more so strategy. It comes down to the timing of your post. You want to make sure that you're posting at a time where you know your audience is most likely to engage. So you will want to analyze your account. There are tools you can use for that. One that will give you analytics is called Iconosquare. And even if you don't sign up for their paid program, they used to be a free program for many years. What you can do is sign up for a trial account, and it will analyze your Instagram account, and it will give you the times that are best to post based on when your audience is most engaged.
Oh, cool.
So timing is important. And then you also, the caption, when you're writing it, you want to make sure that it actually elicits a response from your followers. A lot of times people, and I used to do this too, I would just post up an image with like an emoji in the caption, and it doesn't really inspire a response from your followers. So that's why I moved into this form of storytelling through my captions and asking questions to my followers, which will inspire a response. And funny enough, a lot of people just really like very simple, like yes or no questions. You can almost gamify it a little bit. Like if you're asking for people's opinions or you're kind of polling them, you can ask them to respond with a certain emoji that represents yes, or an emoji that represents no, or, you know, to respond with a certain phrase. Ideally, you want comments that are more than just an emoji. You want comments that are a couple words, because Instagram, you know, interprets that as a meaningful comment, which helps your engagement. And then beyond that, within Instagram, there are ways that you can, and this is something that's also developed over the last year, there are ways that you can kind of team up with other accounts who are related to yours, and you just agree to kind of comment and engage with each other's posts for that initial boost to beat the algorithm. So that's a tactic that's been commonly used on Pinterest for a while. It's common with Facebook pages as well. It just seems to happen every time a platform changes its algorithm and it becomes more about that engagement factor. You'll find people will team up with other accounts and they will help each other out with their engagement.
I noticed in your Facebook group, in the Travelpreneur group, it might be like on Tuesdays or something, you have people post a Instagram link and then everyone can go and like each other's things. And so I'm guessing that features directly into boosting the algorithm of those posts.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Team Up Thursday. And on Thursdays in the group, we will all work together to boost each other's engagement on one specific Instagram post. So you're exactly right. It's a way for me to help my community with their own engagement, which will help them, you know, beat the algorithm, as is commonly said. And yeah, it's really just a way for people to get their post boosted so that in their followers feed, their post will have a better chance at being seen by their current followers.
Cool. I need to have a business account on Instagram.
I don't think you need to. It's definitely more of a personal preference. I did switch my personal profile to a business account for about 3 or 4 weeks to see what difference it would have. And what Instagram really encourages is you to do that for is so you can get access to the analytics. Analytics are great, but you can also get analytics on your account through other external apps and platforms. So you don't have to use the Instagram app for that. And other than that, I found personally, I didn't have much of a need for a business profile. I didn't really need that contact button to be there. And I also didn't really love how it looked. It looked much more like I was selling at people, and I much preferred to come across more as a real person sharing stories and sharing images. So I switched back to a personal profile, and I've stuck with that for the most part, basically. The other aspect to a business versus a personal profile is, and this isn't confirmed by any means, but, you know, it's not unreasonable to think that because Facebook owns Instagram, that one day business profiles are going to be penalized in the same way that Facebook did with business pages not too long ago. So back in the day when Facebook introduced pages, they all looked the same, whether it was a business or a personal profile. And then Facebook introduced the business page. So when people switched over, Facebook could then identify who was using Facebook for business. And then after that came the announcement that Facebook was changing up the algorithm so that it was going to highlight more of friends and family posts, and it was going to hide more business posts, which essentially exactly, which was exactly, it was their monetization method. So Instagram is part of Facebook. So in my personal opinion, it's not crazy to think that one day that's going to happen with the business profiles on Instagram as well.
Okay, cool. I see some people with a little badge, like a checkmark, public figure, or things like that. Is that something that would be worth striving to get, or can you just apply and get it?
You know, I haven't looked into that too much on Instagram. I've done it for Facebook just because they say that if you verify your page, it's going to help you in the algorithm. I'm not sure if that really is the case or not. But yes, with Instagram, if you're an official brand, and again, I'm not totally sure of the rules off the top of my head, but if you're an official brand and name or business, I believe you can apply to get that check mark, which signifies that you are the official account. I've heard rumors that kind of the only way or the easiest way to do that is to know someone who works at Instagram who can take care of that for you. But yeah, personally, I haven't tried to get my account officialized with that check mark. But if I do try, I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay. I'm one of those people that really likes to make up titles for themselves or even acquire big titles so that I seem really cool. Just because it's almost like an inside joke. Like the titles don't mean anything except that they kind of do. And, thirst is nothing, image is everything, Sprite, whatever. It's all silly, weird branding stuff that actually works.
I hear ya. My branding is a bit crazy too, so I like different and weird for sure.
A couple final questions that I ask all of my guests. The first is, if you could change or add something to the world, what would you want the world to have?
Oh, wow. That is a big question. If I could change or add something to the world, what would I want it to have? I feel like I could be back in a pageant right now, and I could go for something like world peace.
Wait, did you do pageants?
I actually did, yes. I did as a teenager. It was my local community's volunteer program, but it used to be a pageant back in the day, so it was still kind of a pageant, kind of a volunteer program. So yeah, I've been on stage.
So do you like the movie Little Miss Sunshine?
I do, yeah. I mean, I like it because it's more of a dark comedy. I like the dark humor about it. Yeah, the pageant world is very bizarre, so it's good to laugh at it when you can. But what comes to mind for me is probably because I just came back from Nicaragua, and Nicaragua is like the second poorest country within Central America, or so I was told while I was there. So seeing a totally different aspect of life, especially coming there as like a first world, North American with a laptop and a phone and like all this equipment that was literally equivalent to someone's salary for a year or two, I found the new perspective on a new way of living to be really eye-opening. And while I was there, I also noticed that there are a ton of street animals that have a very hard life living in a hot place. Yeah. While I was working at the co-working space, the group there actually took in a litter of kittens that they found on the side of a road. And the kittens were probably a month old and pretty close to being dead. And they took them into the vet, got them cleaned up. 2 of the cats had kind of eye problems, and they helped nurse the kittens back to health. And for the whole month that I was there in nomad life, those kittens literally lived at the house with us. And we all, of course, developed an emotional connection to them, even though we were trying to get them adopted and give them a better life. So for me, while I'm traveling, there were some people in Nicaragua who they do have organizations to help street animals, they'll give them like free vet services, or they will pay for them to get neutered. Organizations like that I really respect. I've heard of similar ones in Thailand as well, because of course there's, big street animal population there. So I think something along the lines of helping those in the world who can't help themselves so easily, whether it's pets or children, I think that would be awesome to add to the world if possible.
I love that. Yeah. And you see the same thing happening where we met in Bali. A lot of Bali Dogs and public projects, largely among the expat community, to healthify the local stray dog population.
Yeah, that's true, actually. And I also just came across an organization that's based in Korea, and this lady has created like an adoption agency for you to adopt dogs that would have been killed in Korea, but she's figured out a way to get them adopted by North Americans and kind of give them a new life. So there's a ton out there once you start looking into it.
Yeah, brilliant. From the potential dog feeding humans soup factory or whatever to a North American life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, final question. What is your definition of adventure?
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say, what's your definition of success? I wasn't expecting adventure, but I should have been, because that's the podcast I'm on right now. To me, the definition of adventure is, it's maybe more of an internal thing more than an external thing. It's not so much about where you're going or what you're doing, but it's internal in that you are for sure pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And secondly, maybe even facing a little bit of fear that you have. I think being in an environment that pushes you outside of your comfort zone and forces you to face or do something that scares you is integral to just personal growth and expanding your horizons. And with that, you gain a new perspective on the world. So typically that happens through travel. Typically travel is the way to do something new and do something that scares you. So that's probably why I like it so much. But you could even find those experiences just in your day-to-day life, finding new experiences that scare you a little bit. I think it's important to try them, to face them, and then see how it maybe even changes you a little bit as a person.
Brilliant. Elise, where can people find you online should you wish to be found?
Well, let's bring it back to Instagram. I'm on Instagram my handle is at Elise Darma, Darma. You can also go to my website where I do blog and have some Instagram resources, which is elisedarma.com. And lastly, if you want to join the Facebook group where I'm very active, and we're sharing tactics on Instagram growth and growing your business and growing your blog, you can just head to travelbossclub.com and you'll be redirected to the Facebook group there. So yeah, you can find me there. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great hour.
Thank you for coming on. I was very curious about Instagram, and now I know lots more. So it was it was cool to learn some of these nitty-gritty details, because I do, and I know a lot of other people spend plenty of time on Instagram. So knowing a little bit more about how it works was great. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. No problem at all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you have it. Another great episode with Elise Darma. Now remember that Instagram, you don't own Instagram like you do your email list. So it's a tool like all social networks to get attention, to drive traffic to your business, to your website. And it's really cool to see how she has taken advantage of growing her Instagram, realizing that she needed and wanted to do that, and then growing it and getting lots of engagement. If you go on Instagram and see what she's up to, you can see that she really is interacting with lots of other people. So that's really cool. She walks the walk. And, it's clear to see how that's affected her business. Now she gets all these opportunities, and it makes sense when you know what you're doing and you dedicate a solid effort to something. So congratulations to her. It's really great to see, and it's great to know that we can get there too. So right now you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to become rich off Instagram. Yes, by all means, do it. And let's talk, because Instagram is an important pillar in a multi-pillared business. There's podcasting, there's writing, there's speaking, there's all kinds of other things to help your marketing effort and help position you as an expert. And that's what I want to help you with in a strategy session. So if you want to do a strategy session, if you're starting a business, or if you already have a business and you really want to position yourself as an expert and grow your location independent business, then we should probably talk. Again, send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com, or go to the coaching page on the website and sign up for your slot. That's all for today's episode. Thanks so much for joining. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.